An epic adventure. The big sky and wide open spaces of the West. A legendary cattle drive. Cowboy heroes larger than life. Brave, adventurous women. A boy and a nation coming of age. Lonesome Dove, the highest-rated miniseries in history, captivated audiences and compelled critics to call it a television masterpiece. Based on Larry McMurtry's Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, Lonesome Dove tells the story of two lifelong friends, former Texas Rangers Gus McCrae and Woodrow F. Cole, who take off on the adventure of a lifetime.
Why not go up to Montana? The cattleman's paradise, to hear Jake tell it.
Sounds like a damn wilderness if you ask me.
They round up a herd and head north to Montana, 2,500 miles away. Along the trail, they're battered by storms, cross snake-infested rivers, and trek for miles without water. They find new romance and old loves. They take on horse thieves, outlaws.
Strip off them duds.
What? You come into this world naked. I reckon you can go out the same way.
And Indians. And meet an astonishing array of characters who made the West the wild and dangerous place it was. Lonesome Dove takes us along on a rollicking journey into the legendary world of the classic Western. Join stars Robert Duvall, Danny Glover, Tommy Lee Jones, Angelica Huston, Diane Lane, Rick Schroder, and the movie makers as they take you behind the scenes for a rare inside look at the making of an epic.
Larry McMurtry's vision is rather unique, and it comes from as close to the source as a writer can get, a writer that's living today.
It's a great American epic which happens to be set in the West. Well, Larry wrote it with Peter Bogdanovich originally as a theatrical vehicle for Henry Fonda, John Wayne, and James Stewart, but they never could make that work. So Larry stuck it on the shelf for another 6 or 7 years. And then when he took it off the shelf, he rewrote it and expanded it hugely, you know, into the novel Lonesome Dove.
And it's really a saga of the West. It really tells the story in a different light than any Western I've ever seen. And plus, it was a fabulous book.
It's simply one of those books that you couldn't put down. I think I read it for 3 solid days, and you know, and towards the end, you know, couldn't bear to finish it, so I'd put it down and run off and do something and then come back to it. But it's like a wonderful meal that you can't bear to be over.
Academy Award-winning actor Robert Duvall makes a rare television appearance as Gus McCrae.
At first, they approached me for the other part, and I said, no, I've done that. Let me try this other part. It's the kind of part I've done on stage before, but never like in film, that kind of outgoing guy. And I said, that's the only part I want to do. So I said, give it to me. Let me run with it. I'm ready, you know. I got in good shape, and that was it.
Hey, camera, Mark.
Maybe Augustus McCrae is my favorite character I've ever played. Because I could bring, you know, many sides to the guy. And this guy was out. He was like a libertine. He was happy-go-lucky. He lived the moment in his own personal way to the fullest, each moment of each day, even if it was boredom.
I felt it was a privilege to play that part. Great part.
Maybe Augustus McCrae is my favorite character I've ever played. At least as good as Hamlet.
I like a shot of whiskey, and so would my companion. It ain't too much trouble. Howdy, boy, you got a good game going there?
Who the hell's that?
got mud in your ears or what?
Rye, or what'll it be, old timer?
Rye will do, provided it gets here quick.
Darn cowboys ought to broom yourselves off before you walk in here. Get all the sand we need without the customers bringing it in. That'll be $1.
If Augustus McCrae walked into a Shakespearean play, he'd hold his own as an interesting personality.
Now, besides the whiskey, I think we'll require a little respect. Now, I'm Captain Augustus McCrae. This is Captain Woodrow F. Call. Now, if you care to turn around, you can see how we looked when we was younger, and the people around here wanted to make us senators. Now, the thing we didn't put up with then was dawdling service.
They were interesting guys, really, the Texas Rangers. Like off-duty, some of them were lawyers, poets, writers. They put on plays. They were sharp guys, a lot of them, but they had that vigilante thing about them, and they had to be killers. And yet they were, you know, interesting. That's what McMurtry got in the book, and in Bill Whitloff got in the script as well, is the sensitive side of these guys. It wasn't all one side. So there was a, you know, emotional side to them, like you sometimes don't see in movies.
When was you the happiest, Carl?
And then he has that scene later in Clara's Orchard where it's a little emotional for him, reminiscing about the one woman he could never get, and that's what the very reason he's on the cattle drive is to go see Clara up there in Ogallala, Nebraska.
God, she's beautiful. I expect it was a mistake of my life. Letting her slip away like I did.
Well, you've always got your whores.
Yeah, I guess I did.
I would like to find those moments when I'm working, especially in a guy like what I tried to do with Augustus McCrae, and you know, go along with the character, and when something happens, boom, it happens. There was one scene in particular where Jake is hung. It was okay, and the director said, let's try it again. So we did it again, and something happened fantastic for me.
Well, adios, boys. Hope you won't hold it against me. Never meant no harm.
Something happened to me. It was so emotional, but I didn't predict it. It just something took over me, like, and it was a very real thing. It was one of the best moments I've ever had in my career.
Yes, sir, he died fine, didn't he?
Emmy Award winner Tommy Lee Jones stars as Captain Woodrow F. Call.
He's been a law enforcement officer most of his life, and to a certain extent always will be. He's a leader of men, uncomfortable in towns, uncomfortable in the company of ladies, believes in the great struggle between good and evil, and he's on the side of good. Wants the world to be good, has an idea of what a fine place the world could be if people would just act right. Not everybody does, and those are the ones that he wants to talk to.
He's killing him, Gus.
Not a black and white story. There are variations of goodness and evil, and we learn that as we follow each character through this long journey from the Rio Grande River to Montana. We learn that evil is sometimes with us when we don't know it, and we find that the same thing is true of goodness.
Woodrow, stay! It's me, Augustus. Damn it, Woodrow!
They've participated in many situations where their lives depended upon one another. They have a lot in common. They've pretty much dedicated their lives to civilizing Texas.
I guess they may have forgot us, though.
Well, why wouldn't they forget us? Hadn't been around here in years.
No, the reason is we never got killed. That's why they forgot us.
That is a dang foolish thing to say.
No, it ain't. If 1,000 Comanches had cornered us in a gully somewhere and wiped us out like the Sioux just done Custer, why, they'd remember us sure. Hell, they'd be writing songs about us for 100 years.
Hell, there never was 1,000 Comanches, one much in the whole world, you know it.
That ain't the point, Woodrow.
What is it then?
Another 20
Well, they're opposites in many ways. Gus is an extrovert. Carl is an introvert. Carl loves to work. Gus hates it. Gus loves to joke. Carl doesn't joke very much.
Fun's all over down here for sure now, ain't it?
Fun? What would you know about fun, Woodrow? You never had no fun in your whole darn life. Fun is my department. And now that you're back, I think I'll ride into town and see if I can't scare me up a little bit of it.
We got enough to do right here without you riding off to town.
I'm just trying to keep everything in balance, Woodrow. You do more work than you got to, so it's my obligation to do less.
Popular film star Danny Glover plays expert tracker Joshua Dietz.
I read the script, which is roughly 400 pages, and it held my interest. It moved me. It had me thinking. I like that about something that I do, that the thought process goes further than just the character or the question of how good the character is or whatever, but the process of men. We're all going through the same struggle. We all come on this earth. We all become part of nature. In becoming part of nature, that struggle that Carl and Gus go through and able to verbalize in the film, no doubt is the same struggle that Dietz goes through as well.
Find any water?
Yes, sir.
Well,
80 miles, Captain.
God, 80 miles.
well, we ain't turning back.
I spent a lot of time riding when I first arrived, and just listening, just hearing, and becoming familiar with the terrain, becoming familiar with the elements and the very natural things about the environment. Just sitting in the saddle spurs the imagination in a way, and crossing rivers and listening, just listening and watching and taking in everything around you.
Camp's ahead. Draw with a little water.
I make a basic assumption that even 100 years ago, people, 150 years ago, 120 years ago, 10 years ago, people felt the same things.
They're starving, Captain. They done cut up one horse already.
Ah, God, you mean they stole our horses for meat?
They're real poor.
Hell, they're just having a picnic. We had one ourselves the other day without nobody shooting at us. I ain't gonna shoot them. Just gonna scare them off so we can get our horses back. We'll leave them two Unac mares standing there. They can eat them.
Poor little boy's blind and can't see nothing.
Dietz, don't Dietz.
Oh, hush up, little fella. Boy, you're gonna be all right. He's gonna take care of you.
When you're dealing with a situation where the person you want next to you is the person you want to count on in any kind of situation that arises, and you want to be able to count on him and trust his reaction, then you hire people based upon their skills. And a lot of those people were black people.
Celebrated Australian feature film director Simon Wencer.
I'm not preconditioned by Hollywood westerns and stuff like that, so I think I've brought a fresh look to the whole sort of western genre, if you like. And after all, this is hopefully a revival of the western, and we've really gone back to the history books and not gone for the kind of Hollywood costumes and the way they wear their guns in the Hollywood westerns and stuff, but really how it was. And, you know, that's been forgotten over the years, I think. And Americans have never been very good at looking at their past, I think, accurately. And hopefully in Lonesome Dove we're doing that.
I'll yell out to reframe the shot.
Certainly the biggest thing that I've ever done, and I guess for any film director it's probably as big as they come. It's being made on a television schedule, which is 16 weeks, and basically in that 16 weeks we're making 4 films, and every scene is large and has, you know, animals, and there are 89 speaking parts in the film, and a normal day for us with the herd would be upwards of 300 cattle, 17 actors mounted, a couple of pigs and a few wagons thrown in as well. What we've tried to do, we have 9 different towns. You know, each town has a different look. People have jobs. People aren't just walking about the streets, they're doing things. I don't think that a lot of people have spent the money or just taken the trouble to do before that kind of detail, you know. And we've got a terrific production design team who are really very supportive and want to get it absolutely right too.
Get mule. Go mule.
Background action.
Simon's a frustrated horse trainer himself, I believe.
Whoa, yeah.
He's got a knack about photographing animals. At night, when we'd get done on Lonesome Dove, when we had all the cattle and everything, and he'd probably worked harder than any of us on the show, but he'd get on a horse at night and help us drive the cattle back to the holding pens. I mean, it's, he loves it. He loves the West. He loves animals, and it shows up on the pictures that he does, too.
Simon did such a wonderful job getting the landscape, and you get a feel of just how hard it was to survive.
Acclaimed film actress Diane Lane plays Lorena Wood.
I wanted to play Lorena because she's such a dichotomy of emotions. Here she is doing what she does. She gets paid for her services, a sporting gal.
I kind of like her, don't you?
You been with her?
Sure, who ain't?
Don't go up there with him, please. Don't.
I have to.
You and me. How about a poke?
I'm with Jig now, Gus. You knew that. She's so frail emotionally, but you don't realize that until you bring her out of Lonesome Dove into a world she's never experienced before. She's always, previous to when you see her in the screenplay and the book, her history is she's been taken care of by men, and that was it. And mistreated or not, she's always been sheltered.
I just want to go to San Francisco. That's what I want.
Lori, listen to me now, pretty little thing. You see, life in San Francisco is still just life. Now, if you want only one thing too much, it's likely to turn out a disappointment. Now, the only healthy way to live, as I see it, is to learn to like all the little everyday things.
Yeah, like what?
Like a sip of good whiskey of an evening, or a soft bed, or a glass of buttermilk, or say, a feisty gentleman like myself.
I wanted to work with Duvall.
Now, you close your pretty little eyes. Go on.
That was a really wonderful experience for me to work with him. He was very generous, and we had a great rapport.
25, don't open. 26, and 27. Come on, woman. Hope you can swim.
I can't swim. I can float. About 30 seconds. Hold on. Hold on. Hold his hand now.
When she leaves on the trail, she gets blasted with these experiences.
What'd she do? I said, what'd she do to earn a kick? You mind your own stuff.
You're not worth selling. The Kiowas can have you.
She could be broken and damaged and finished. Her broken spirit, want to die, that kind of feeling. If Gus Duvall's character wasn't her, literally her knight in shining armor.
They shouldn't have took me, Gus.
I know, honey, but they did. Should. But they did. They did. Now, you just go and cry it out. See, you got a long time to live, and you don't want this thing dragging you backwards, see? So you just cry it on out to old Gus. You'll be all right, you, right here. You're safe now.
Academy Award winner Angelica Huston plays Clara Allen.
McMurtry's done a tremendous amount for the woman in Westerns by mere fact that he's given all of us very defined characters and entered into these characters as fully as he's entered into the men's.
Is he gonna die, Mama?
We're doing everything we can for him.
Somebody's coming.
Clara Allen is Gus's longtime love. She lives near Ogallala on the way to Montana. She's a rancher's wife. Her husband is sick. He's been kicked in the head by a horse. She's got 2 daughters. She's his sort of ideal. And they'd been childhood sweethearts, so he comes back.
Your mama works you hard? Uh-huh. Where's your mama right now?
She's outside.
Well, pretty as ever.
Mom.
We're both pretty honest. She calls him half honest, but I think, you know, there's a basic understanding. There's a deep and old friendship. There's the affection that you have for someone that you loved a long time ago that never really goes away.
You think you know so much about women, Gus, but you don't. You're way overrated in that regard.
I got it if you're sassy.
No, I'm honest. You always did take that for being sassy.
I always thought she was a bit of a rebel in her time. And she's doing her husband's work and her own too. So there's a certain sort of freedom about how she moves and how she looks, and it's not straight-laced, a pioneer woman, I think, as we're used to. Sometimes it seems like grave digging's all we do around here, don't it, Cholo? What do you think happens when we die?
Not too much. You are just dead.
Maybe it's not as big a change as we think. Maybe you just go back to where you lived or near your family or wherever you was happiest. She's seen a lot of trouble in her time. She's lost 3 boys. She's a very original character, wonderful character, extremely passionate.
Did you give that boy your name before you left Montana?
Give him my horse.
You gave him your horse, not your name.
I put a lot more value on the animal than I do my name.
Look at me, Captain Cole. I'm sorry you and Gus McCrae ever met. All you ever did was ruin each other, not to mention those closest to you. I loved Gus, but I wasn't going to fight you for him every day of my life. I despised you then for what you were, and I despise you now for what you're doing.
She's very honest, very straightforward, very judgmental. I liked her a lot.
Golden Globe winner and television star Rick Schroder plays Newt.
Well, Newt's, I guess, the youngest cowboy on the cattle drive. He's Captain Call's son. And the thing I like about Newt so much, why I really wanted to play him, is because he has the most growth through this film. It takes place over 17 to 20.
Captain, how far is it up north?
Well, up north ain't a place, Newt. It's a direction. And where we're going is about 2,500 miles that way.
2,500 miles?
So he starts out as a young boy, and along the cattle drive, he grows up to be a man. So it really fits me perfectly, because, I mean, I'm changing from a boy to a man.
Captain, next time you go over to Mexico, can I go? I believe I'm getting old enough now.
You get old quick, you keep sitting around all night, talking. Best go on to bed.
You see, experiences love.
Howdy, ma'am.
Well, what can we do for you boys?
Come on, cowboy. Skin them pants off.
We ain't got all day for you little pants on.
The experience is death.
Ain't nothing much we can do, Newt. It's been bit too many times.
No.
So Newt and I are really one person. But, you know, I use my emotions, I use my feelings, and that's what comes out in Newt. So, I mean, the things he's feeling right now in the script is what I'm feeling in my own life. It's also a Western, which is a lot of fun. I mean, you get to wear a gun. You can see, I mean, I love twirling my gun and riding horses and getting in fights. I mean, that's what this is all about. You know, when you have actors like Robert Duvall and Danny Glover and Tommy Lee Jones, you can't go wrong. And they I guess they like me, and we talk about acting, we talk about techniques, and we talk about all this fabulous stuff. I would basically get paid nothing to work with them, but, you know, luckily I'm getting paid.
Wrangler Rudy Ugland.
As far as casting of the animals in the show, you know, we probably had 25 or 30 principals on that show, and some of them, I mean, even though they look like cowboys on the film, some of those people had never been on a horse before in their life.
It was murder. It was murder for someone who's never ridden before. For, I guess, 9 days, I was learning how to horseback ride, but now I love it.
They were good students, and they learned to ride real well. We spent a lot of time with them and picked out the right horse for them and made them look like a cowboy. And when they finished that show, they were cowboys.
There's a scene where I have to bulldog a big longhorn down. I actually grab it around the horns and grab it by the neck and twist its neck and throw this 300-pound bull down.
If Bobby Duvall worked on a ranch, he'd probably be the best cowboy on the ranch. When you look for a horse for him, you're actually looking for a horse that a cowboy would ride. You're not looking for Trigger or nothing fancy like that. You're looking for a cowboy's horse. That one shot with Bobby where he was riding across the plains in search of the Indians, here Bobby come riding in on this horse, and they fired off a couple squibs in front of him, and boy, I'm gonna tell you what, this horse went to wolfing it up.
I didn't particularly like it, and the head stuntman was very, very nervous, because if I get hurt, that's it.
And if it had been any other actor except Bobby Duvall, it might have been a bad wreck. They left it in the picture, and I think that's what made that picture so great, is because everything was real in it. Tommy's horse was a horse that was an outlaw, a bronc. Captain called, he wanted a horse that was feisty, had a lot of go to it. Basically, the horse that he rode in that show was that type of horse. This horse might buck you off at any time, I mean, in real life. and he got along fine with him. He done a really good job with it. We had a herd of anywhere from 300 to 600 head of cattle, and we probably kept about 85, 90 horses on the show. The town stuff that we did, we probably brought in another, 50, 60 head of horses and wagons, and, usually start on a picture a couple months in advance just to find these animals that can handle the terrain where you're going to go. We spent weeks teaching them to drive, teaching them to swim, teaching them to be around a movie company that with lights and cameras. We never hurt a horse or a cow or a pig on that whole show, and it's a good feeling when you know that you've done a job where you never hurt animals. And and then there's the feeding of them, the care of them, and the cowboys and the wranglers that don't ever get in front of that camera that are up at 4 o'clock in the morning to prepare these things to get to work by 7, and then after work is finished at 6 that night, finishing up and finally unsaddling their horses at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. We had some awful short nights on that show and some awful long days. We had 4 sets of pigs, and they went from a month old to 6 months old to a year old to 2 years old to 2.5 years old, because they went all through the whole picture from Texas all the way to Montana.
And so they undertake this epic journey too, and not only do they do what the cattle do, they get caught in blizzards and dust storms and swim across rivers and so forth.
Look at them pigs swim.
They become, lovable characters like many other characters in the piece. They're terrific. Most of the actors didn't like working with the pigs because they know that when the pigs are on screen, they haven't got a chance. I say that jokingly, of course, but they're wonderful, and I think the audience will really love them because they're involved in many humorous situations.
Costume designer Van Broughton Ramsey.
Basically, what I'm supposed to do is to read the script, talk to the director, and then interpret what he wants by sketches. A lot of this was based on photographs. This was Robert Duvall. The amount of research that Robert Duvall had done was staggering.
I'll take it.
Duvall's hat we had narrowed down to basically 3 different styles, and he tried them on to see which one he liked. And he took the hats and he went, this one, no, this one, no, this one, yes.
It was a perfect hat. When you put it on, you know it. You just know it, and like everything else revolves around that. And then the boots were made by some guys in LA. It was all one piece of leather. And in that day and age, they wore the boots on the outside, and they weren't quite the advent of the Western boot as we know it today. The cowboy boot hadn't come to be.
Tried to give everybody in it a unique look. This was like one of the dresses for Diane Lane, and one of the things we came up with for Angelica Huston. The women characters were pretty much based on diaries from women and on choices of clothes that they might have worn, and then some from photographs.
Until I'm dressed and I'm on set, it's hard for me to really get a bearing on what the character is, or a lot of it. And in this case, I kept finding myself running back and forth to wardrobe and saying, "Do you have a hat?"
Newt, see that little sorrel over there with the star on his forehead? I want you to have him.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Newt was interesting because he was basically the youngest of all of them, and we were trying to show a progression of him from being a young boy and not having very much responsibility, being taken along on this cattle drive, to becoming the head, the kind of overseer of this ranch once they got there. We did that mainly through his hat, because he was like wearing a discarded hat, and a hat that really didn't fit him, that was oversized, and it was obvious that someone had given this to him. And then when he finally got to Montana, he had his own hat and developed, a sense of style about himself.
Which one you want next?
we kind of had to imagine what are these clothes really going to go through. I mean, are these the only clothes that these guys own, and if they've been on a horse for a year, well, then you really beat it up.
Ain't no point in getting too clean, boys. You'll be neck deep in the New Oasis River before dark.
And you try to simulate what kinds of things is this person exposing his clothes to, and what kind of dirt does he ride through. Sometimes there would be scenes when they actually had to ride through the dust storms, and they bring out these enormous Ritter fans and huge sacks of dust and just dump the dust in front of the fans and let it go over everyone again. So, I mean, they were just covered, and so was the crew. I mean, you had everyone using their bandanas. I mean, you just couldn't tell people apart.
Screenwriter and executive producer Bill Whitliff.
Humor plays a real big part in this film, but it is a humor that comes through character. I mean, the humor, when it comes through character, comes through that specific character rather than being humor that's laid on just to get a smile or a laugh. I mean, it's an integral part of the story. It's an integral part of the character.
That's a dang stupid thing to do, bringing that old sign along. You'll have us at laughing stock of this whole country with that "we don't rent pigs" part.
Well, we don't rent pigs, and I figure it's better to say it right up front, because a man that does like to rent pigs he's hard to stop.
And if that ain't bad enough, you get all them Greek words on there, too.
I told you, Woodrow, a long time ago, it ain't Greek, it's Latin.
Well, what does it say, that Latin?
Well, it's a motto. It just says itself. Jovarum feet, Jovarum double feet, whatever.
You don't have no idea what it says. You found that in some old book or something. For all you know, it invites people to rob us.
Well, first man comes along that can read Latin is welcome to rob, as far as I'm concerned. I'd like the chance to shoot at an educated man once in my life.
It's humor that's very, very authentic to the time. You know, when it was a rough kind of humor. I mean, where the only way you could get through some of those situations where people were dying and getting crushed under horses and so on was to find a way to smile at it and go on.
God, that's enough. That is enough.
Look at that. Is he shooting at us?
He can't hit nobody from there. He's just wasting his bullets.
Maybe an old man like you needs a better target. Here comes another. Look what that son of a bitch done to me.
Production designer Carrie White.
There was a tremendous effort made toward being just as authentic as we possibly could be with the story. It would have been easier to shoot it perhaps on some other place, but we did shoot it, built the town of Lonesome Dove right on the banks of the Rio Grande. You'd look over there and there was Mexico. It's described in the book as a dried up little part of a town on the banks of the Rio Grande. This is the little bird's eye view of the town of Lonesome Dove that I did originally just from reading McMurtry's description. We wanted to keep it just real simple, real stark, just as bleak and barren as possible. Here's an illustration of the Hat Creek headquarters, little adobe building. I wanted it to be all shored up where the pigs had been digging under the front porch. Here's just a sketch that I did of Gus and Jake Spoon at the Spring House. We did as much research as we possibly could. Our primary source was really the photographs that we could find. You do some adapting, and basically come up with the design. It's like casting for parts in the show. It's such a complex story that working with an Australian director, he wasn't that familiar with the geography of the U.S., so Simon asked me to draw him a map. What we did was try to find different terrain that would match where we were supposed to be, because we did not make this trip from here to here. We went from Austin to down to Del Rio up to northern New Mexico, and we had to make it look like it was covering the entire country. So, like for example, when we shot Clara's Ranch outside of Ogallala, Nebraska, it should have been real flat. We actually shot it outside of Santa Fe. We were very careful in picking the angles to avoid the mountains as much as possible. Then we built barns and outstructures to mask out other mountains. The cabin that the Hat Creek outfit builds up in Milk River, we got this character named Neil Bowie, who's a log cabin constructor, builds these handmade log cabins, and if it looks real, it's because old Neil was there instructing these guys how to build it.
Push it up.
Neil Bowie, he dug out log canoe for us that was seen in Bent's Fort and looked just terrific. This is a drawing of the whiskey boat, which was actually a barge that they use in Austin, Texas, that we sort of remodeled into a 1800s whiskey boat. This is a drawing of the courthouse in Santa Rosa, New Mexico, where Blue Duck takes his dive. This is a drawing of the Alamo, and our heroes ride by the Alamo when they make their little side trip to San Antonio to pick up a cook. It's real exciting to see it come to life, because you start off with just words on a page, and then it takes on a visual form, and then it becomes a concrete form, and then you got people in it, and the cameras are rolling, and when you see it on film, it's a wonderful thing to behold.
Stunt coordinator Bill Burton.
Everybody wanted to do Lonesome Dove. Every stuntman, every wrangler, every cowboy in the United States wanted to do Lonesome Dove.
187 Apple, take 2.
My favorite scene in the whole movie was the fight between Carl and the scout. We blocked the whole scene 2-3 days in advance with Tony and myself and Tommy Lee Jones, step by step.
Action!
Tommy obviously wants to do all of his own stunts, and in that particular scene he did. He actually rode the gray, what they call the hell bitch, down the street and ran it into a black falling horse, which Tony Ipper was riding, and it was like throwing a punch at the camera. He never made contact with the black horse. And the remarkable thing that you couldn't do if you had that doubling Tommy was he stepped right off the hell bitch, went around and kicked Tony in the face. So if we'd have had to double Tommy Lee in that sequence, he would have, we'd had to make a cut, of course. So that was a nice plus, having someone as handy as Tommy Lee is. And then we did the whole fight. We blocked it all out days in advance and rehearsed it. Every move was blocked and executed, every swing with the branding iron, every punch, every kick.
No more! No more! No!
One more time here. Give him a chance. He was on that last. The only thing that wasn't rehearsed was when Bobby Duvall has to ride in and rope Tommy Lee and pull him off Tony.
Action.
To save his life. The scene in the beginning of the movie that we did where they go into Mexico and steal the horses, and was done at the actual location. All these horses and all these cattle, they all have a mind of their own. It's not like a car chase or a motorcycle scene where you turn the key off or or turn the gas off. These horses, you know, and they were wild horses, they pretty much do what they want to do, and it takes you a couple of nights of chasing them just to even get them honed in and tired enough to where they're responding to you and get them trained which direction to run in the film. So you've got to stampede horses right by your lens and right by Musco lights and stuff. All they want to do is go the other way. And you talk about, you know, a couple hundred head of loose horses, all wanting to go 200 different directions, and you've got 10 people trying to control them. Tough job. I had a horse fall down and go right out from underneath me. In fact, it's still in the film. It wasn't featured, and if you look in the stampede at night, you see this little horse off to the, I believe it's the left-hand side of your frame, fall and go down. It rolled over me, and I was sore for a long time after that. It really hurt me. And, you know, of course, the horse falls down, rolls over the top of me. He gets up and runs off, and then you've got a couple of hundred head of horses right behind you that you've got to run for cover. And then we bring the horses literally across the Rio Grande into the United States and right up the main street of Lonesome Dove. To me, it was the Old West. It was America.
There's a huge variety of characters in this thing, both good and bad, both male and female, both white and Indian and Mexican and so on. I mean, it's an absolute panorama of the West.
It's a grand adventure and great entertainment. That's why people will watch it. I think it's fabulous. As a book, it was great, and as television, I don't think you'll find anything much more entertaining than this.
You all right? Hell no, I ain't all right.
Rather well made and very beautiful. It's exciting and adventurous and funny and heartbreaking. Those are all excellent ingredients for improving an audience's time.
I want to see that country. Boy, bankers and lawyers all get it.
All my cowboy friends, they watch it every day. I know guys that come home from punching cows at night and they turn it on. They only might watch a half hour, but they'll watch it.
Well, we're going to build a ranch in this little valley right here.
I've seen it 2 or 3 times now already, and every time I see it, I get a chill down my spine because it's not a movie, it's real.
It's epic. It's about love. It's about life. It's about violence. It's about men and women. It's about overcoming fear. It's about bravery. It's about adventure. It's classic Western, real classic Western.